Hello YouTube, back again 1 week later. So we're going to do a little sum up video this week of my figures, just to see how the progress has happened. We've done a lot of listing this week, and I'll get onto that later. But another poem for all you lovely people who like the last few poems, even though I absolutely read them out terribly compared with the actual author of the poem, but never mind about that, because I am an amateur, a gifted amateur, but I am an amateur. First of all though, I just want to say thanks for all the lovely comments on last week's video, which was sort of like my comeback video, not like Elvis's comeback obviously in 1967 or whatever it was. He looked a lot better than me, and at that time he was slim, svelte and decked out in leather. Yeah, but thanks to everybody. As you know, when I start talking I can go off at a tangent. Just bear with that, there is some little nuggets in here somewhere. But let's start first of all with another poem. Now, we might get a bit more highbrow in future weeks. I might start doing a bit of Keats or a bit of Rabbie Burns, you know, Ode to the Field Mouse or something like that, if I can perfect my Scottish accent. I can only remember the first 4 lines of that one. We sleek at timorous, cowering beastie, oh what a panic's in thy breastie. That's all I can think of, those first 2 lines. But when I start reading it with a Scottish dialect, it's pretty tough. So tonight we've got Kung Fu International. Outside the takeaway Saturday night, a bald adolescent asked me out for a fight. Now he was no bigger than a 2-penny fart, but he was a deft exponent in the martial arts. He gave me 3 warnings, trod on my toes, stuck his fingers in my eyes and kicked me in the nose. A rabbit punch made my eyes explode. My head went dead and I fell in the road. I pleaded for mercy, I wriggled on the ground, he kicked me in the balls and said something profound. Gave me face millimetres of tread, stole me chop suey and left me for dead. Now through rivers of blood and splintered bones I crawled 1/2 mile to a public telephone. I pulled the corpse out the call box, held back the bile. With a broken index finger I proceeded to dial. I couldn't get an ambulance, the phone was screwed, the receiver fell in hard, it had been kung fu'd. A black belt karate cop opened up the door, demanding information about the stiff on the floor. He looked like an extra from Yang Shang Po. He said, "What's all this then?" I said, "Ah so." He wore a bamboo mask, he was genned on Zen, he finished his devotions and he beat me up again. Thanks to that embryonic Bruce Lee, I'm a shadow of the person I used to be. I can't go back to Salford, the cops have got me marked. Enter the dragon, exit Johnny Clark. Boom. He does it a lot better than me, obviously. He's had plenty of practice and he wrote it. Maybe I should start writing my own poetry, which I may do one day, now that I'm living a more structured lifestyle. And I've always been a maverick, so you never know. Right, so let's get on to this week's sales, or last week's sales. Right, so I started listing back on the Saturday. So we're going to do Saturday to Friday, 7 days, and the total sales this week was £2,059.60. That's including postage and everything, that's just gross sales, and that was 35.8% up on the previous week, which I'm happy with. We've done a lot of listing, I'll get onto that in a little bit, but let's just have a look at the figures here. I can't show you the figures because obviously it's on, you know, you need to see my beautiful face instead, so, you know, it's one of them, innit? It's a cross we all have to bear. Right, Saturday's sales £340.67, selling cost £41.70, net sales £298.97 according to eBay. And that's 157% up on the previous year. The Sunday was £295.59. and that was £35 selling costs, leaves £259.93, 89% up. I'm presuming that's on last year. It might be on last week. It can't be on last week. Oh no, it is. Sorry, they weren't last year. They were compared with last week. Sorry. Very sorry about that. Work in progress. Here we go. Sunday we did £195.80. Selling cost of £24.67. That's basically eBay fees and PayPal fees and what have you, I presume. Net sales of £171.13. Up 20.3% on last week. Tuesday was £343.57, £41 for selling costs, and that's again his fees. That doesn't include costs of goods and VAT and all the other bits and pieces. Net sales of £302.55, that's 105% up on last week. Wednesday was a little bit quieter than last week. We did £196.87, selling costs of £24.13. Net sales of £172.74, so that was 20% down on the previous Wednesday. Thursday the 30th, we did a total sales of £349.27, selling cost of £43.37, and that's a net sales of £305.90, up 26% on the previous week. And Friday was £332.83, selling cost £29.97, net sales of £302.86, which was 158% up on the previous week. So yeah, there's been a bit of growth. May's always a quiet month. It always seems to dip in the middle between the two bank holidays. But I've worked out that I sold an extra 17 items last week that were listed by me from when I came back out of hospital. So I started listing on the Saturday, and 17 items have sold for a grand total of £511. So if you take that off the 2,059, that leaves you with £1,548 would have been the week if we'd have still been just running on the residual stock. So as you can see, 25% of the sales were from items that have been listed in the last 7 days. Right, there's just a little thing that I want to go through this week, and it's probably been gone through many times before by many better sellers than I am, and many better YouTubers than I am. But it's just how really you're going to sort of like do your selling, really. You know, are you going to be a niche seller, just selling in one niche, say for example ties or socks, or are you going to be multi-niche, you know, where you sell clothing, bedding, you know, knickknacks, but you've got 5 or 6 niches that you stick to, or you're just going to be a generalist who basically whatever you can find you pick up. Now all of these selling methods do have their advantages. I mean, if you're a niche seller, you're very likely to become a real expert on what you're selling in that one niche, because you're going to be sourcing it all the time. You're going to be researching it all the time in the early days, and you're going to you're going to be able to find these items from specialist sales, I should imagine, most of the time if you're a niche seller. But the problems is that stock could dry up from a sourcing point of view, because you're only looking in one niche, and that week if you go to the charity shop or the car boot or whatever, or the auction or wherever else you source your items, there may be dry periods in the sourcing. Also, as a niche seller, if you're just in one niche, you could be having problems with sales, you know, just that week. Photographs of 1930s film stars just aren't selling. Nobody's interested. Nobody wants to look at Charlie Chaplin that week. Laurel and Hardy have lost their appeal. Whatever. You know, that's the thing if you're just in one niche. Multi-niche, which is probably sort of what I'm in. I've probably got 10 or 12 different niches that I sell in. For me, I find this pretty good. It gives you a broader selling range. So obviously you've got 10 different groups of items that you sell. So say for example it's men's clothing, women's clothing, children's clothing, shoes, accessories, etc, etc, etc. You've got all these different things to look for. I'm not a clothing seller, by the way, apart from the odd bit of military, but I'm just using that as an example. It gives better sourcing opportunities because obviously you're spreading your net far and wide there. You've got 10 lots of items, 12 lots, whatever, that you can look for. So you are going to find more stock, and you're going to find stock easier. And again, not a lot of research after a time being, because you're looking for the similar, you're only restricting yourself to say 10 lots or 12 lots of items, and you get more and more knowledge about these items, so you don't need to do as much research. Now, your generalist basically will sell everything and anything. Now, there's two problems with this really, and there's a lot of positives. I mean, it's excellent sourcing opportunities. You can find stock virtually anywhere, as long as you can spot the value, which is quite important. And I don't know whether that's a God-given thing or a thing that's taught really. Spotting items, I just naturally seem to be able to spot value in stuff, as do many others. Other people, rely on sort of like research at the point of sale where they're buying the item. So obviously if you're a generalist and you're having to do loads of research while you're there, it could be quite time consuming. A generalist may have space constraints because they may be buying large items, small items, a lot of mixed stock, opportunities for that stock to get damaged in storage as well. And you're going to need more research because obviously you're going to be buying a lot of stuff that you've got no idea what it is, so that's going to be not as time efficient as say being a niche seller or being a multi-niche seller. And like I say, I tend to go for the multi-niche, and it's just built up over time. It's stuff that I'm interested in, and basically now I can sort of like do that with my eyes shut to a certain extent. But again, I buy job lots of items rather than singular items, because I always find that you tend to pay more for a singular item than you do for a job lot. So I always tend to go where the value is, and hopefully I can spot the value. Another thing to consider with this is, as a basic selling thing, is you've got your niche, your multi-niche and your generalist, but what do we do? Large or small? Now, large items can have, well, I think quite a few problems. I've done quite a lot of large items. Eventually you're going to run out of space. Eventually you could run out of space doing anything, but obviously with smaller items, that space is going to last a lot longer. As you can see above me there, if you just look at those two shelves over there, next to that air purifier, that top shelf's got tins on it. I used to sell a lot of tins, the slow movers, and that shelf's probably got 100 tins on it. This shelf down here has got ephemera on it, and there's 4 tubs there just in the front, and then there's more space behind those. Each of those 4 tubs has got 3,000 items in, so there's 12,000 items as opposed to a few hundred items there. Maybe only 100 or 200 items. I've not counted it for ages. Might only be 100 items, but thousands to low hundreds in the same exact storage space there. And then storage problems can increase your costs, because you might have to get a storage unit, rent, increased packaging materials, larger boxes, etc., more bubble wrap and other things. Or you may source your free packaging. If you source your free packaging, all well and good, but you're going to have to look for more of it, and you're going to have to waste time driving around for that. And big doesn't always mean valuable. A lot of time you'll see big items that cost quite a bit to source and go for reasonably decent money, but you'll also see big items that, you know, don't go for a lot of money really, and don't give a massive return that's reflected in the size of the item. There's more chance of items getting damaged in storage as well with large items. You could trip over it, you could knock it off the shelf, something else on the shelf could get pushed into it and scratch it or damage it. And also in transit, the larger the item, generally the heavier the fall, like me, you know. I mean, I'm a little bit smaller than I was, but you know, if I fall, someone's going to feel it, probably in another country. Smalls. Now, smalls, I've gone sort of like from large items to small items. I don't really want anything sort of like, basically, that's about my limit now. Something like that. You know, this is a military box. But something about that size is my limit, but mainly smaller than that. I'd say 80 to 90% of my stock now goes large letter. Now, small items, obviously they're easy to store because they're small. They're easy to pack, and guess why that is? Because they're small. More scope for expansion. If you want to have a big, massive, ginormous store and, you know, stock thousands and thousands of items, well, small, because they're easy to store. Less likely to get damaged in transit. Guess why? Because they're light and they're small. So, you know, just it's obvious, isn't it? And lower postage costs. If you're sending stuff large letter or small parcel, it's better than sending stuff medium parcel or getting into the really large stuff when you go in Parcel Force 48 or the higher Hermes prices. And small items doesn't always mean low profits. I mean, I've sold one item this week, a piece of paper, for £80, and it's literally the size of a postcard, and it's gone for £80. So small items don't always mean low profits. You can find valuable small items, little bits of jewellery, watches. There's all sorts of small items that go for good money. And then I have a little theory that relates to small items, and that's the fact of sort of like averaging your turnover. Now I want to get up to, we're sort of averaging between 250 and 300 a day at the moment, or we were before I was ill, and this week it's what, 300 a day over 7 days would have been 2,100, and I did 2,059, so not far short of £300 a day average. But I want to boost that to 400 a day. But I've always said that if you can get a box with, doesn't matter how many items you've got in, whether you're slow or fast sell-through rate. Obviously, if you've got a fast sell-through rate, you need less items in a box. If you've got a low sell-through rate, you need more items in a box to give more choice to the buyers. So I reckon, if I call it my 40 box theory, if you've had 40 boxes in your storage system and you could pull in sales just £10 a day out of each box, that would give you an average of £400 a day. So 40 boxes, well, with smalls, 40 boxes I could probably fit in this house quite easily. We're probably up to about 25, 26 boxes anyway. So it seems to be working, this £10 a day theory from each box, and £400 a day is 2,800 a week, which is 11,200 per 28 days. So if you're working on a 28-day period rather than a monthly period, that gives you 13 months a year, in effect 4 week months. And that's £145,600 turnover, and I think last year we did 109,000. So it's, you know, it's an extra 40 grand a year, which isn't to be sniffed at. But that isn't obviously 40 grand a year wages. There's a lot of cost to come out of that. So you could probably narrow that right down. Actually, you've got cost of goods, you've got VAT and all the other lovely little bills that you get off PayPal and eBay. Yeah. So that's it basically. A bit of a rambling resume of last week's sales. I'm quite pleased. Progress has been made. I think I've put about 250 items to 280 items on, but I think we've had a net increase of about 140 items, because obviously sales have counteracted some of those items. So that's me signing off for this week. Hope everyone's well. I hope everyone's sales are improving. I hope you're all listing and working away like beavers, and I hope you're all thinking about your business, not just in the short term but in the long term, and which is going to be the best solutions to your problems. And always remember, fail to prepare, be prepared to fail. See you later. Bye 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 bye.